I want to ask Stephen about some of the latest episodes of Freakonomics Radio. And the one that has me captivated is Will New York City win its war on rats? And you have a character in episode 2, Robert Corrigan, urban rodentologist and pest consultant for New York City. And I love his story. He needed a job. He became an exterminator. And he was terrified because they sent him into the sewers of New York City. But as a New Yorker and someone who has had to walk over the rats, you know, as they're running in the 2 a.m. hour, eating the garbage through the plastic bags, are we going to win the war on rats? Because every administration, as you've pointed out in the episode, tries to do that.
If I had to bet, I mean, we need to define some terms. What does it mean to win? It's hard to define terms. I mean, this goes back, Adam, to what you said in the very beginning about measurement and how it's hard to understand or fix a problem unless you can measure it. There's literally no count or census of rats in a city like New York or elsewhere. Some other places, Hong Kong has apparently started to make progress with some infrared cameras and so on. But if you think about it, you know, if there's a couple 100,000 or million of something that live underground and we mostly only see them when either we are underground or when they come above ground, it's hard to count. So I will say this, a war on rats is a pretty smart war for any mayor to declare, because you can declare victory without empirical proof that you've actually done that much. If you catch a few rats and you maybe string them up or parade them around in handcuffs, you can act as if you've done some great thing. Really, you know, there are a lot of factors that go into this, but the main one is simply this. Rats like to live around people. It's been that way for thousands of years. Every civilization on every continent has been accompanied by rats. And so whether we, quote, win the war, it's hard to say. It would certainly be nice. A lot of people would like that. On the other hand, there's a question worth asking, which is this. Why is this animal, this mammal, that has basically been our little companion for thousands and thousands of years, why do we hate it more than all the other animals?
Right? Hey, real quick, because in the first episode, you show that new research may burst the bubble of what we all believe about the bubonic plague and rats.
It is true that rats have spread bubonic plague in some places in the past at some times, but for the biggie, the Black Death, which was bubonic and maybe a couple other plagues, that is now thought to have been not spread primarily by rats, but rather by human, ectoparasites. So it'd be lice and things like that. So yeah, you're right. There's a reason that rats have been considered villains for a long time, having spread disease and death. And it's not untrue that rats are capable of spreading disease and death. Other animals are capable of spreading disease and death. Humans are pretty capable of spreading disease and death. So part of this series for us became just a very basic question about why is the rat hated more than just about any other mammal. And then in the third part of the series, which we're actually, as soon as I finish talking to you, I'm going to go put the finishing touches on that episode, is about people who have either befriended rats, worked with them in research labs, or in the case of one guest on that part 3, made a movie about rats, which is Ratatouille.
Oh, so Ratatouille. Okay.
So we speak with a fellow, an amazing computer animator named Jan Pinkava, who came up with the original story and worked on it for years at Pixar. He didn't end up as the final writer and director of record, but his story about making this film and what he was trying to accomplish with that story about a rat in Paris who decides he wants to become a chef. It's a very deep and surprising and kind of lovely story that I think will make a lot of people change the way they think about rats.
I think if they listen to episode 2, they will learn so much. For instance, as a kid watching Sesame Street, Oscar's garbage can, I don't want to give it away, has a rat connection, and that rats taste like chicken. I don't want to go there, by the way. I don't ever want to know. But that's your teaser for episode 2. I want to bring up something from when we were both kids. I think we're just about the same age. I'm maybe a year or two younger. But you brought up Franco Harris. And in the episode on why NFL running backs don't get paid more, I was blown away that the salaries, the annual salary for some of these people who used to be the stars, 1 to 3 million. Now, I would cheer at a $1 million salary right now, but that blew me away. I didn't realize that they had fallen so much. And in the episode, you explain why. In fact, one of the guests points out if you had any advice for a football player who wanted to be a running back, I think he says, learn to pass. What was it that the data showed you about why they're paid less?
Yeah, so if you are a football fan, this is a really interesting story. If you're not, it's still an interesting story because it's about how, labor changes over time. You think about some jobs now that used to pay a lot more, and conversely, some jobs that used to not exist and now pay an awful lot. For the running back, as you said, Adam, the running back was really the star of football for years and years. Quarterbacks were pretty prominent, but really the passing game wasn't that popular for many years in football's early history. Then the quarterback did become much more popular, became much more highly paid, much more highly protected. But then the passing game continued to develop more and more. This was largely due to the league wanting to make NFL football more exciting for fans, for TV. They succeeded wildly in the process of that. I don't remember the number right now, but it used to be that the vast majority of plays from scrimmage were running plays. In the old days, it was like 90%. But then the balance really tipped, and now the majority are passing plays. Although I will say this year, which was kind of a year of the running back, mostly with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry being so prominent at Philadelphia and Baltimore, respectively. There were more run plays from scrimmage this year than there have been in recent years. But basically, the running back is a labor position. If you think about it, not like an athletic position, but just in computer programming or in marketing or in finance, any position where the demand is high and the supply is relatively low, it's going to pay more. And now you've got a lot of people who are capable of being running backs and not as much demand. The other problem for running backs is that it is, as one guest in our episode put it, the most violent position in the most violent sport. And so no matter whether it's a run play or a pass play or some kind of hybrid, the running back is making contact on just about every play. Therefore, by the time a running back gets into what would be their second contract, because when you're drafted or come into the league, you're usually locked up in a contract for 4 or 5 years. You've just taken so much physical abuse that often the teams will say, he might be a pretty good running back, but I can probably get someone for a fifth the price who's got a lot less mileage on him. There are a number of other factors that went into this wage decline, including the way that the league's collective bargaining agreement changed and how running backs were kind of unprivileged in there. It got to the point where running backs talked about forming their own kind of carve out of the NFL Players Association, their own union, so they could negotiate separately. And I understand the impulse because it seems like, if you're a great running back, you have to say to yourself, I am easily among the most talented and valuable players on this team. So why is my salary overall ranked 13th in the league? It seems to make no sense. But, from the perspective of the business model itself and durability and so on, that's the way it is.